Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm Kayla McGowan, Editor-in-Chief, and today I'm joined by two special guests who are diving into AI and content restoration. Let's start first with Jason Krohn. He's the founder and CEO of Plains Crafters, using AI for total loss contents, and he has 30 years of enterprise software leadership in Microsoft, ServiceNow, Salesforce, and IFS. He also has expertise in digital transformation across industries like healthcare, insurance, and manufacturing. He also holds a degree from MIT Sloan AI and Marquette University in economics. Next, we have Chad Holland. He's the regional director at Paul Davis Restoration, SEWI, and he is leading mitigation and contents operation. He's an expert in commercial and industrial restoration and manages high-profile projects nationwide. He holds multiple IICRC certifications and is continuously advancing his skills through training and education. He also holds a BBA graduate degree from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Please welcome Jason and Chad.
Oh, thanks, Kayla. Great to be here.
Yes, thank you guys for joining me. I think AI is such a huge topic, and then to throw in content, I'm pretty sure people are like, what is all of this for those who don't know? So I think I did a good job with your guys' background. It was really hard to narrow down your key accomplishments because you guys have both been in the industry for quite some time. So, if there's anything I missed, please let me know throughout this lovely conversation. But if not, we're just going to dive right in.
Awesome. Good to go.
Perfect. So first and foremost, I think people want to know, how has AI specifically transformed the process for contents and total losses in our industry thus far? Because I think it's going to continue to influence and transform it. As of today, April 2025, what has specifically transformed due to AI?
Well, let me talk to this generally speaking, and it's hard to believe that in November of 2022, ChatGPT was publicly released, right? And if you think about the way that we work using ChatGPT as an AI source, fundamentally, it dramatically has saved time in how we craft emails, for example, how we answer questions, how we derive artwork. I mean, it's just incredible. And that is, that's in a less than a 3-year span. So where the implications, I think, come into play as it pertains to, let's say, insurance and especially contents, I think it's suffice to say, and maybe Chad would back me up on this, in the world of contents, we're still living in the Stone Ages, right? When you look at, there's a total loss, and companies like Paul Davis and Chad's organization and others go out and they do an inventory of the items. That is a lengthy process. So you go out and you collect all this information only to go back to the office and have to redo it in the context of looking up every single item on a tool like Google to associate a price with it. So at Claims Crafters, we really believe that the time is now. The advent of tools like ChatGPT and the fact that we are living in the Stone Ages in the insurance world. Why not apply some type of generative AI in order to kind of compress that time frame of getting pricing, which typically could be 3, 4, 5 weeks beyond, down to a few minutes, but also simultaneously make sure that it's timely, right? So, we can take a 5-week process down to a couple minutes. We can make sure that it's accurate, but also most importantly, it's transparent to all the stakeholders, right? And this is really why we developed Contents IQ as our main contents valuation tool.
That's so interesting to hear. ChatGPT 2022. Wow, we've come a long way. Now we're using it in contents restoration. That's actually really fast. And I think that if you know how to utilize it, it can be such a great asset to your processes and procedures for your team. It also can enhance your efficiency. Chad, do you want to add anything to that? Because I know that you utilize it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can smell AI coming through a lot of different channels with restoration, from estimating, first pass reviews, guidelines for TPAs being followed. All that stuff has kind of been under development. It's been a little bit of a rough road, but I think, everyone's got the same path, right? And it's speed. Um, Contents is something that I think gets neglected because it's a smaller, more niche part of a claim. So for us, I've spent 16 years of my career trying to bring things in-house, not because I want to grow a sale, capture more of a sale than having subcontractors, anything like that. My mission was to have a better service product for the customer. And the best way I found that is if we could control that, if our staff could control the customer experience. So, prior to AI and contents valuation, it was a long and tedious process. Carriers would sub it out to others, and we wouldn't know about it for weeks. We'd have customers asking us what was going on. And it was really the last soft spot for me in the contents experience for a customer that we wanted to solve. And, thanks to, Contents IQ and this kind of software coming out, it's really helping us speed claims up. So speed for us is number one, difference maker, but it's all towards the same goal of making the customer experience better.
Yeah, I was going to say tools like AI and even the software and platforms that we utilize are always at the forefront to customer service and experience, right? I've heard a couple of people talk about this in particular in our industry. There's usually three things you have to weigh. Is it helping us, right? That's key. Is it making us better? Or is it adding time to our processes? And what does that do to the customer experience? If it messes with your customer experience, then obviously you're not going to do it. But if it enhances it, why wouldn't you do it? So I think a lot of people are a little leery with AI. AI has been around for quite some time. I mean, it's in our movies, it's in the cameras that are watching us in intersections. I mean, it's literally everywhere. I just think we happen to be one of the last industries to actually adopt AI. And so we're facing some challenges or hurdles when, trying to utilize it or learn this particular piece of technology. So what kind of challenges do companies typically face when they're handling contents, and how can AI help them overcome the obstacles? And I say that because you mentioned that contents is such a small niche in our industry. Adding AI on top of that could probably be really scary, but it could also help somebody actually bring that service into their business. So how can they overcome that?
Yeah, 100%. Uh, with the whole contents process, you know, uh, I always say the hardest part of a restoration job, besides the customer going through some sort of peril, um, is the contents portion of the project. Really, anybody can dry out a home. Anybody can put drywall back up and paint it. There's a lot of contractors that can do it. There aren't a lot that are great at contents that take the care that's necessary to handle a contents claim. And that's really the part of the claim that is the most emotional. Once the shock of what happened is over, people care about their stuff more than they care about their drywall or their cabinets. Those things can be easily replaced, but the things that you've collected over a lifetime, family heirlooms and your kids' artwork and all that stuff is more meaningful. So the better experience we can create there is great. And like I said earlier, the last piece was controlling that part of the contents valuation. One, for speed. There is a hang up in our process right now when those contents are left on site as total loss. They sit there until we have an agreed inventory, and then once we hear from the adjuster, we have an agreed valued inventory. We are clear to trash out those contents. That could be weeks. That could be weeks. We could have already been putting the home back together. So um, AI is not directly changing uh, the restoration process as far as putting a drywall back up, but it certainly is interconnected with the duration of restoration. It is shortening the duration for us, and it's something we enjoy, and obviously carriers enjoy. They're paying less ALE. It's one less month or 6 weeks that they're out of their home, and we can get back to work quite a bit faster.
Yeah, Jason, do you want to add to that?
I think, one of the things with AI that makes it really interesting, AI is a great assistant, right? It can process so much faster than any of us can do combined, right? And I think in the context of contents, it has the ability to come in and give you that RCV, give you the ACV, do its speed in a timely fashion, and also being very accurate. But at the end of the day, the AI in itself isn't the panacea for all solving everything, right?
Yeah.
There is still this human factor, like guys like Chad and people like Chad have to come over and still take a review of this to kind of put it through the sniff test. So I think Chad could speak better to this, but I think the time is better spent working through exceptions than actually going through the process of delivering on each and every single line item, where that becomes a very laborious and administrative process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, without this is not a humanless process yet. It would be amazing if it could be. I just don't see that happening, because our greatest value to our customers is our service. And as awesome as AI can be, if you've ever used ChatGPT and you ask it something, if you ask it something very vague, you get something very vague back. So you still need a human trained and able to take an accurate inventory with the right information in the right places to make this process go well for yourself upon review, and for the customer to make sure that they can get a settlement fast and we can move this project forward. I can say the first couple times we used Contents IQ, I mean, the speed was amazing, but we had to change a little bit of our process to make sure that we were doing it justice. And once we gave it the data accurately, really pumped out amazing information that adjusters around here are really loving.
Yeah, I would definitely say I think you guys hit on some key pieces. The human portion of our service actually will never go away, because we do a lot of manual labor, but we also can show compassion and empathy and sympathy, and AI just can't do that, right? And I think some people hear the words AI and they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take over, it's going to take my job. It's not going to take your job. It's going to help enhance your processes and your procedures to make you more efficient, and also use your time in other places that maybe you wouldn't have been able to. And I think that's kind of where we all on this call and beyond are responsible to kind of hone in on that and say, like, look, it's not here to replace us. It's here to help us be more efficient. And also it helps you do things in a process and a procedure form where it doesn't matter who's utilizing Contents IQ, it's going to be the same, right? And that also brings down our errors. It brings down the exceptions if we're utilizing it the way it's supposed to be utilized. And Jason and Chad, you both echoed this. Like, if you ask ChatGPT or any AI something very vague, it's going to spit something vague back at you. Also, depending on the AI you're using, it may not be up to date. So I think that's the thing, is to understand it is here to help you. It's here to make you more efficient, but it will never take over our roles as professional in the space. And again, it's just something that helps enhance us. Like, think about when we were on pen and paper and we made the switch to an iPad, right? Or the cloud, right? There was a learning process. This is no different. I just think it's a little bit scarier because of how AI is utilized outside of our industry, if I'm being quite honest. But you guys talking about this brings it back down to reality. I would definitely say, like, this is how you utilize it. It's really not that scary.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's not. I was just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of just a couple of things, like, you have an entire ginormous house fire super affected, and we write an estimate walking the job site, and the adjuster writes the estimate after we ESX a sketch over, and they write their version of the estimate, and now we have two 300-page estimates, and they're off by 10%. And we used to have to take a highlighter, print both copies out, and go through and what is the difference? The difference report wouldn't necessarily do it justice, so you would hand go through that. And that's time away from the customer. Now you can throw those two versions of an estimate into AI and it will spit out the differences, you know? So it helps eliminate human error because we can make mistakes. We can omit something. And I think AI, as far as estimating goes, is going to eliminate a lot of supplements that might happen later, you know, and nobody loves to put a bid out and then it's incorrect, but it happens. It's human error. I think AI will eliminate some of that. And we're finding that in our contents with AI also because we can spend more time with customers and less time digging through paperwork, and that's where our time is best spent.
Yeah, I agree on that. You know, I think the one thing that AI is extremely good at is doing matching and categorizations, but also detecting patterns, right? So maybe if let's say you're writing an estimate for a particular square footage of a house and you're off, it can alert the user of this. But I think the one thing that's going to get really interesting with AI is the personalization of your insurance programs and your insurance contracts. It's going to be much more adapted to who you are, the type of lifestyle that you have, the material that you own, and it's going to be that much more tailored. I think we're going to be looking at some really exciting times here in the very near future.
Yeah, and I would
But
just definitely echo that. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, the other thing I just want to make comments of, and this is kind of the exciting part about putting together a tool like Contents IQ, we deal with some really sophisticated stuff, right? Like really geeky things like generative transformers and vectorization of languages and all this kind of geeky things. But what we do is we assemble it and make it very digestible for the user, where we're abstracting, you know, the practical implications of how the product is going to work for the user from all that other complexity on the back end. And it's so easy to use, and that's deliberate. You know, we want to make it crayon simple for the constituents that are out there today that are technology aficionados.
Yeah, and I think there's different aspects in every single generation. Obviously the younger generation is gonna geek out over any technology, AI, and I feel like some of the groups in the middle, they're like, we could live with it or we could live without it as long as we know how it works, right? And I think that's just they're down to business. And some of the older generations, like what I've been doing has been working. But then they get the taste of it and then their mind changes a little bit. But just to echo what you said earlier about the future of AI and just our industry. I mean, you said ChatGPT came out less than 3 years ago. We haven't hit 3 years ago just yet. And it's changed things immensely. Now we have Copilot and Gemini and all these things that have come out. And not to mention like the Adobe's version of AI and, Contents IQ, you utilize it and leverage it the way that you should in order to help make your human interaction honestly better and have more time and not feel rushed. So with all of this, I know that Chad and the team at Paul Davis utilize Contents IQ. How has it helped you guys leveraging Contents IQ in your content service? I know you kind of talked about it briefly, but is there like something that's really stood out to you in recent times? You're like, man, if I wouldn't have had that, we would have been still handling that project if it weren't for Contents IQ.
Yeah, it's very we do a lot of contents work by us and like I always wanted to have a full service model. So I brought in doing our own textiles, and not every location does it, but a lot of them do. And we want to control that process and customer experience. So that was the biggest change for us is there wasn't a void where some other company took over and we were waiting for them and they're rifling through people's stuff and taking this inventory. We could stay in control, keep it to our standard, take care of the people's contents. They already had a loss. We're inventorying those things, but it doesn't mean they don't want them cared for. They don't want them thrown about the house in a disaster pile or something like that. So just maintaining our level of care and customer service, like that was the biggest add-on for us. Just controlling how we can service our customers and kind of rounding out the process um, in control. An adjuster says, when will this be done? We can give that deadline and execute on that. When it goes to some other company that comes in to do the inventory and valuation, we don't know if we're going to be waiting 4 days or 6 weeks, and the customer's calling and asking, when are you going to begin? I thought we were going to get going right away. Um, and if it was a substantial loss, there's a lot of lost contents left behind. The other main factor is just like in Los Angeles with the wildfires, from time to time there are total losses. Homes are gone. Um, well, in our area, we can sit down with our customers, invite them into our office. We can recreate their home with them. Sit down, look through pictures, talk about sitting in your living room. Look here, look there. What was on this wall? What was over here? And start to help jog their memories to recreate these inventories, which is a service we've always offered. It's tedious, but once you get that inventory, then what? Then what? Now we have a solution. We can finish what we started. We can finish a content claim and round it out completely. So something we're proud of, we're super happy about, and glad to finally have an answer to this issue.
Yeah, that sounds like huge, right? When we're talking about total loss, or even not maybe a total loss, there's different extremes for each, right? Like, especially for the people in California or the people in Asheville, right? Their losses look different. But to be able to have that personal touch to say, hey, come in, let's walk through your home so we understand what was in every single room. And I think it also provides some type of closure or peace of mind. Even if they're not saying it, it just gives them hope, and it gives them that sense of security that they're going to be taken care of. And honestly, most people's darkest days, if I'm being quite honest. And you guys both touched on this, content specifically, it's heirlooms, it's things that just may not hold value to somebody else, like a drawing from your child. And to be able to sit down and to be heard as a customer makes a world of difference. And then to be able, like you said, to take an estimate and compare it to another, instead of going through 600 pages and trying to highlight all the differences, you can actually ask AI how to help you. And that also not only makes you faster, but still contributes to peace of mind in the customer experience. And we've talked about this earlier. Customer experience is always at the forefront. And if you're able to enhance it with tools like AI, why not do it?
Yep.
And this brings me to my next question, because content is so specific, and I know a lot of companies out there don't necessarily offer content. They'll collaborate or partner with somebody else who does, or like you guys have both mentioned, you have to sub it out, which can lead to a whole world of problems. Time, communication, things can go missing, things can get broken. Just a whole world of things that we don't want to open those doors to, right? So why do you think some companies maybe overlook that, and how might AI help change that perspective? And I think, Chad, you spoke about this. You wanted to have a full service, location, or just services in general for your customers. Did AI enhance that at all? And if it did, what could somebody see, outside of their like obstacles of like, I don't want to do it, it's hard, how could this help them maybe take on that new service to be full service for their customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started doing this 16 years ago, and I was actively packing out homes and all that stuff. And when we would get down to this loss inventory part, I tried 1,000 different ways. I made spreadsheets, and I did, and it was all manual, and it was a very tedious process. And when you're just, one person sitting down, on Google looking up stuff, it's exhausting. It's time consuming. We found that we didn't really provide value. We spent too much time, and if that employee wasn't, ripping at 200 plus words a minute on the keyboard, we were losing, and we didn't want to charge carriers more than they were already paying. So I think that's probably the biggest hang up why a lot of folks don't do this, is it's very time consuming. It's boring to sit and price things out. It's very tedious work. It's a lot of clicking around and staring at a computer screen. And I'm not one of those people who can sit for 8 hours in front of a computer. I'll lose my mind. So I think that's probably the biggest deterrent. It was for us, and I would imagine that's how it is around the industry. Is everyone who does contents, they have an inventory software of some sort. There's 1,000 flavors out there. Everyone has the one that they like. You're just inventorying the loss and categorizing it a little bit different, creating a different report, spreadsheet. And now we have the next step, throwing it into Contents IQ spits out dozens of hours of labor and mistakes that could be made by a person and condenses it down to maybe a couple hours of review and report creation and maybe tweaking a couple things because we lacked in some sort of description. It still takes human review and all that stuff, but it cuts the time down from days or weeks to hours, easy. So that's probably the biggest deterrent. And I would imagine with AI, people are going to be like, all right, this isn't so bad anymore. I could take this on.
Yeah, and I was just going to defer to Jason on this too. I mean, obviously, this is probably one of the biggest things that people think about, like, oh, it's time consuming, it's tedious. It's a lot of responsibility too. Content is a lot of responsibility. Everything we do, there is a responsibility aspect to it. But when you're talking to, Mrs. Smith and you have to tell her, hey, this china that's been in your family for 200 years is not salvageable or what have you, we'll try and fix it. That's heartbreaking, right? Like there's an emotional aspect to content. And I think a lot of it is not just the time, but some of it might be emotional, right? That's why people don't do trauma and crime scene or illicit drugs because of the emotion that is behind it. And so I feel like contents really does have that. Not only is it time consuming, it's a lot of emotion, and AI can help with the time, but the emotion is something that you can't take that away with AI, unfortunately. But fortunately for us, it makes our jobs that much more important to the people we serve. So, Jason, can you kind of talk about why AI and Contents IQ came about? Is it to help the industry? I know obviously it is, but is it maybe to open the door for other customers or other companies who want to explore contents?
I think it's both, right? So when I first got into this, what I learned a whole bunch, right? My background is in software and in AI, right? So I'm kind of a newcomer when it comes to content. But what I learned was a couple things. One is there's an emotional connection to these contents. These are people's belongings, right? And they certainly want to maximize the level of what those things are valued at. So we have to be extra careful in how we price those things. And today, the way the pricing is happening is through single sourcing. I'll tell you right now, like you outside of Contents IQ, you go onto the internet, you Google an item, and the first item that comes across is the price, right? But there's some implicit bias that comes about, with that price looking up one item. So because there's an emotional connection with people's contents, we have to be very deliberate in making sure that it's fair and equitable. And I really think that that's where Contents IQ comes into play. Every single line that we run within Contents IQ, we run 10 times just to make sure that we have a very nice distribution of pricing. And once we have that distribution of pricing, we want to make sure that that pricing is fair, right? So we're kicking out highs and lows and other detractors. But at the end of the day, it is about fairness for both parties, really, from the homeowner as well as the insurance company. It's also about transparency, right? And it's also about speed. The last thing you want to do is have these contents hanging out there for weeks until you get a valuation, then you know what you have to replace. So we want to kind of compress all that and be very fair and transparent.
Yeah, and to your point about the time, right? And we didn't even touch this, but depending on the type of loss, you can have deterioration, you can have mold. I mean, there's just so much that can happen. And a matter of days, let alone weeks. And then some of the stuff that didn't have to be replaced in the beginning actually may have to be replaced. And so I think time is not really on our side when we're doing a lot of manual work, but if we utilize our tools like Contents IQ, it helps us gain that time back, but also be a little bit more efficient, right? Like we cut down the human error. There is still a human aspect of having to review, right? This is not, you rely solely on the tool to do everything it's supposed to do because things change. I think, and to Chad's point, you could actually put wrong data in and it's not AI's fault. It's actually your fault for not being more thorough. And so, there is processes that have to be put in place for not just AI, but for humans utilizing this tool. So what kind of impact do you think, Contents IQ and any additional AI powered contents tools could have on our industry's profitability and competitive positioning?
Oh boy, the sky's the limit, really. I mean, when you start to look at AI in particular, I think we can get into the world of more tailored policies for individuals, right? We don't today. We live in a world where one size fits all, and then that may not be the case, right? So if we can understand, where a person lives, the type of items that are in their house, now we can have very bespoke and tailored approaches to industry or to insurance. And then the other thing too is with advancements of data and analysis, I think we could pick up some fraud detection much more easier, than we've done in the past, right? In the past, it's been kind of on a hunch, but now using statistical processing and different tools that are available in the AI world, we can understand, potential fraudulent claims, let's say. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about speed and accuracy and the benefit to, the people that hold the insurance policy and holding their carriers accountable to tailoring programs for their specific needs. And I think that's bilateral, right?
Yeah.
There's an expectation from the consumer base, but then also I think it's behooved upon the carriers, to provide the public with programs and policies that are much more bespoke to them.
But I would also say too, and Chad, you can probably talk to this a little bit more. Instead of going back and forth a ton of times, right, between the carrier and the contractor, this could actually alleviate a lot of that, especially if we're talking about line items being run 10 times and like having a fair and transparent price. There's also a healthier way of negotiating your claims because let's face it, claims are always going to involve negotiation. If it doesn't, there's probably a problem. But, I think that it's a healthier way to build that relationship, but also ultimately take care of the customer. Because at the end of the day, the customer ultimately suffers on either end if there's no agreeing, right? Or, it's not coming out the way we want it to come out. So I think AI also will play a huge role in transparency, like you mentioned, Jason. It levels the playing field for everybody, and also it's easier to explain to the consumer. Right now, I think we struggle a little bit with explaining things to the consumer because we're in our area and the carriers in theirs, and to meld those two worlds together, it's going to take technology and communication, right? And maybe it's something that the insurance carrier ends up preferring, right? Because I think we see that with software like Xactimate and Symbility, right? TPAs also prefer stuff like that. And maybe that's where this AI tool could eventually come in, where it's a preference that when you're handling claims for them, you utilize said, technology, whether it's Contents IQ or, like Symbility and Xactimate, it could level again the playing field. It makes it a lot more collaborative at the end of the day. And so when you talked about talking about this, I was just thinking, wow, there's so much opportunity. And you also echoed like the sky's the limit when we're talking about any technology and AI. It can help us propel forward and take care of our customers a little bit better.
Yeah, I think also one of the big benefits too is transparency, right? I mean, you're making this available to all parties in a standardized way that all parties can kind of agree upon at the end, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Two
Go ahead.
big things for us as far as, this is a service that we provide, so it gives us an opportunity to generate new revenue on a claim that we already have, whether it's physically taking the inventory or taking it all the way through valuation and creating reports. And at Paul Davis, we customize our approach with our customers and carriers, but still utilize AI to make sure that we're fast and we're accurate, and there is no bias, right? A funny story, we recently, I mean, this is probably just a prime example of kind of encompassing what you asked. Um, we recently were called by a carrier to go to a multi-family loss, a lot of loss contents, a lot of different units, some common space contents that were owned by the building, a little bit more complex. There was a public adjuster on it that we're fairly familiar with, and um, that public adjuster really takes contents to heart because he doesn't like the options that are out there right now that mostly give you replacement costs from big box stores, right? From Walmart, from Target, from Amazon, from whatever big boxes around you. So he doesn't like that. He likes to be more specific. And we came in, we did this inventory. It was 4,000 line items total. Turned it around in a day or two after we created our reports, and that blew his mind. But after 4,000 lines, he came back with 14 lines that he said needed some minor adjustments to the tune of like $400, which was very minimal. That's something I've never seen before. And if public adjusters and adjusters are agreeing on things faster and settling claims faster, that's just better for the customer. It's better for everybody. So I think that's a big impact on AI on this industry, but it's also big for us, a customer service, feather in our cap.
Yeah, I would definitely say, just to your point, we're all customers as well, right? I've had my own loss. I'm sure you guys have faced your own loss, and if not, lucky you. Mine was a water heater loss, and just talking about this, I could have saved months. Like I had my loss in August. The dry out was smooth, but the recon was horrible, if I'm being quite honest. And it probably took us like a good 8 months, right? And hearing you talk about this, Chad, is like, wow, I probably could have had this fixed in like 2 weeks. I'll take 2 weeks over 7 months anytime. And I think that's the beauty of this, right? Because not only that is we're taking care of our customer, we're actually able to help more people than we can at this time, which I think again plays back into the customer experience. Their wait time is down, their claims being closed or up, right? And they're able to go back to their everyday routine, even if it's not as normal as it once was. That's what it's all about, is giving your customer peace of mind and a sense of security, right? Because most times when we're handling contents or even a loss, it's like really hard for somebody. Their life is disrupted. And if we can just enhance that experience, why wouldn't we utilize tools like AI?
For sure.
Mhm.
Well, that's all I had. I think we can probably go on and on about this just because of where AI can take us. But I'd really like to thank both of you guys for your time today and talking about this topic, right? It's a great topic to talk about, and it's a little bit more honed in on contents, which I don't think has been discussed quite frequently, or maybe not at all. And I think it just helps open our eyes and open discussion for what the future can hold for not just AI in our industry, but contents and other services that we offer. So thank you both so much for your time. And for all you listening, as always, we will see you on the next Ask the Expert. Take care.